can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. I can only imagine, yeah. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine.
What will it be like when my pain is gone and all the worries of this world just fade away? What will it be like when you call my name? In that moment when I see you face to face, when I hear that sound. All of heaven's angels crying out, singing holy, holy, holy are you, Lord. Singing holy, holy, holy are you, Lord. Singing holy, waiting my whole life for that day. Until then I'll live to hear you say, well done, my good and faithful one. Welcome to the place where you belong. Well done, my beloved child. You have run the race and now you're home. Welcome to the place where you belong. Well done.
They say sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. And right now I'm losing bad. I've stood on this stage night after night, reminding the broken it'll be alright. But right now, oh, right now I just can't. It's easy to sing when there's nothing to bring me down. But what will I say when I'm held to the flame like I am right now? I know you're able and I know you can save through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. They say it only takes a little faith to move a mountain. Well, good thing, a little faith is all I have right now. God, when you choose to leave mountains unmovable, oh, give me the strength to be able to sing. It is well with my soul. I know you're able and I know you can save through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. I know the sorrow and I know the hurt would all go away if you just say the word. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. You've been faithful, you've been good all of my days. Jesus, I will cling to you, come what may, 'cause I know you're able, I know you can. I know you're able, and I know you can.
soul.
We're here to remember and to honor the life of Randy Parmer. And if Randy were here with us, and I have to admit to you, I'm still having a hard time accepting what has happened. I keep expecting the door open and Randy will walk in and laugh and say, it was all a joke. That's how Randy could operate, as you know. But there are several things we know Randy would do. One thing he would do would be to high five or hug or whatever. So turn to somebody and high five them on behalf of Randy. Other thing, Randy would say, as he often did at the end of the conversation on the phone or in person, he'd say, love you. And I love you, man, love you. So turn to somebody and just say, love you. We're here to honor Randy, and we're here to honor the Lord Jesus Christ, which Randy honored by his life, and you'll hear a lot of that today. May God bless you to be seated, and we'll begin the formal part of the service.
This is my nephew, Corey.
Randy, a.k.a. Blocker Blockhead Parmer, age 60, of Smyrna, died Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. He was a native of Douglas, Georgia, and was preceded in death by his parents, James Gerald Parmer and Montine Townsend Parmer. Randy attended Lynette High School and graduated from Trevecca Nazarene University. He was a lifelong member in the Church of the Nazarene. His service included youth pastor, associate pastor, senior pastor, a member of the district NYI Council, and co-director of SoloCon. Most recently, Randy was employed by Kroger and served as an associate pastor at Smyrna Church of the Nazarene. His personal passion was his online video blog, Not So Crazy Talk, which will be his ministry legacy, sharing the gospel through his own unique and whimsical perspective. From the youngest to the eldest, he was a friend to all. He rarely met a stranger that didn't become a friend. Randy's light shone brightly in this world. Each life he touched was illuminated with the love of Christ as he shared part of himself with all he encountered. Randy loved big, and lives were made better as a result. He is survived by his sister, Joy Moore, and husband, Paul, brother, Danny Parmer, and wife, Deandra, nephews, Brent, Corey, Caleb, and Cohen, nieces, Lindsay, Amanda, and Kaylee, great-nephews, Matthew, Liam, Jace, and August, great-nieces, Alexa, Leah, London, and Macy. You can find Randy's video presentations on YouTube by searching Randy Parmer, Not So Crazy Talk, and Randy Parmer, Infant in the Block.
All right, and maybe for a brief period of time, the formality will be over because I'm here, and I'm not all that formal. But before it is that I start my informal speaking, we're going to have some of the people who are really close friends with Randy. Is that too loud? That good? Tony Roberts, can you hear me? All right. So we're going to have some of the people who've known Randy really well. Marty, Thompson, Clay, Gassaway, Jordy, Edmondson, Pastor Tony, Lindsay Stone, and my daughter Kaylee. They're going to come up and say a few words about Randy and the impact that he had on their life or their observations. It may be humorous or it may not. So Marty Thompson.
Me and my friend Tracy Souls, we drove up this morning. We were thinking, when we were talking, we talked about, we've had the we were fortunate enough to be a part of Randy's life 3 different times. Once when we were small, when we went to college at Trevecca, and then later when Randy and his dad came back to our church to pastor. As you know, everybody here knows Palmers. If you're ever a part of the Palmers, you can't move away. Yeah. If they leave, nothing changes. And I've just been fortunate. Tuesday night, we got in late, and we'd been at a tennis match, and my youngest son and my wife, we were sitting just tired, and I got the text that probably a lot of you got. I looked at my phone, and I really couldn't process what I was looking at. And I knew that if I told my family what I was looking at, that it would hurt them. And so my mind just started going fast, trying to come to grips with even what I was seeing. And it probably was only 30 seconds, but a lot went through my mind. I thought about Danny and Randy. I have no other memory other than Danny and Randy being in my life. We were best friends at church, at school. Just that was everything that we had. My sister was Joy's age. My other sister was Randy's age, and I was stuck with Danny. One day, the pastor, he felt the need to go to Lynette, and we were devastated. But as I said, just because they leave, they're never out of your life. I went to college, and I thought I was all alone. I was not alone. I had the Palmers. Danny and Randy, they took me. We ate at every restaurant in East Nashville. And as I go through these words, you'll hear the word restaurant a lot.
Did you ever go to night before?
Yes. They entertained me. They just took care of me. Miss Parmer took care of me many weekends. I didn't realize, but they were actually just caring for me. We played football together. And, that's literally the funnest thing I can talk about. I remembered when they, later in life, came back to our church. Our church was running 170. It doubled instantly, and it was like that for 10 years. What Randy did and what his dad did was like it's never happened. Their ability to connect. I think about Randy, the things Randy did. He started a nonprofit that brought soccer, basketball, and cheerleading to our poor community. There's 3 traffic lights in our county. We're 12 miles from the town, which is 2,000 people. He brought soccer to South Georgia. That's a true visionary. But it was insanely successful. It allowed our church to reach people it's never reached before. I think about Charles Sutton, he's a local restaurant owner. He didn't go to our church. He's just a friend. They named a pizza after him. But Charles told me recently that his wife, Sharon, started having seizures one Friday afternoon. And they took her to the hospital, and the local hospital was going to take her to Augusta. And while they were waiting for an ambulance to get there to take her, he called Randy, and he said, "Randy, where are you at?" And Randy said, "I'm in Chattanooga. I'm going to Nashville this weekend." And he said, "Okay, well, just pray for Sharon. Something's bad wrong." And Charles went to the waiting room, and sometime during the night, he felt a hand behind him, and it was Randy. Randy had drove 5 hours back, just to be with him. I think about our high school football coach. His son was an all-state quarterback. Randy talked to him many, many times and later baptized. I think about, I was in Rotary Club with Randy and how he was revered. I mean, he was so irreverent, but he a lot of old successful businessmen, and then here's Randy, but he was cherished. He was cherished. I think about even the school system. He was. Someone made a mistake of letting him do play-by-play with the girls' softball, and he had to throw his humor in there. It was hilarious. I think about my grandmother. She died at 102. He called her Granny Rowland. And, I mean, y'all know, grandmother thought Randy was hers. And he had the best message. He had a picture of her house and a path. And he talked about whenever life gets tough, take that path back to grandmother's. I think about my dad. He's alive and he's doing well. He always wanted Randy to preach his funeral. And all of this thinking happened in that 30 seconds. So I finally got the courage and the ability to tell tell my wife and son what had happened. And I called my other son, and I called my daughter, and I thought about the times that I played knee football with Randy when I was young. He did the same thing with my sons. And we went to bed. My son came and got between me and my wife. He's 250 pounds. He's a football player. But nobody said a word. I mean, none of us, we really never said anything. But I was tossing and turning. And I kept thinking about that. All that happened in my brain in just 30 seconds. And just as I kept working through that, I realized Randy had been in heaven for a few hours at that time. And I said, if I did this in 30 seconds, what did he see his first 30 seconds? Did he see his mom? Did he see Brother Parmer? Did he see Granny Rowland? Did he see Jesus? I mean, it changed everything that night. I wish I could tell him. Yeah, I can't. And I could say so much more. There's people here from Wrightsville here, and they're here because of him. It's amazing. But I can't tell him what influence he had on me in my life. I think about my grandparents, my community, my parents, my family, my children. I can't tell him, but as I've tried to show throughout what I've said is, no matter if you have a relationship with the Parmers, they never leave. Joy, your family, Danny, your family, I can tell you. And I can say it very generically that everybody here, if you love the Parmers, you understand what I'm about to say. It's just thank you for being the Parmers. You're the Parmers in our life. Thank you.
Wow, what you talk about? Well thought out, man. So my boy Birdnest right here. So it won't be informal right here, but he may be formal. All right, brother.
Thank you, now. So let me start out by saying that the Parmers have been a special family in our lives. You know, one of the things that anybody that knows the Parmers, it's not hard to see. Montine and Gerald instilled in their boys and in their daughter the importance of family. Family was first and foremost for the Parmers. And, you know, when I sit back and I remember when Randy, Danny, the Parmers came to Bethel, I was 12, 13 years old. Randy had just completed his senior year He was a defensive end for a state champion football team, and he had Danny, right, who wasn't smart enough to be intimidated by his brother. And I was like a reluctant little brother from the aspect of, he didn't really like me a whole lot at first, right? I mean, I don't think 17, 18-year-old big brothers like little brothers and all their friends that they happen to bring in the house, right? So, but I wore him down over time, right? And so what I would tell you is when Danny asked me to come up and speak, I'm thinking about all the trips, all the ball that we've played, all the things that we've done. And a lot of things it's not appropriate to share in front of a large group. And I don't mean it negatively towards Randy. I'm just saying it's not. What I come back to, though, is if you look at the last 3 years of Randy's life, the greatest tribute you could ever pay is to look at how a man takes care of his family. And I'm sorry if I'm letting you down on the joke side, but if you had the privilege of seeing Randy and Brother Parmer together, you could see a love and a relationship. And this is not to take anything away from Joy or Randy, but I can just or Danny, but I can just tell you that God knew what He was doing, and He had ordained a time in Randy's life where he could put his life on hold, and he could take 100% of his time, his energy, and his focus, and he could give it to a man that was so deserving. So, in closing, now that I've probably got tears in everybody's eyes in the church, I just want to make sure everybody understands the kind of person it takes to do what Randy did. He didn't just do it for Brother Parmer. He did it all his life. As Marty mentioned, there's so many instances where Randy intervened or where Randy ministered to others or where Randy... Now, I can tell you there were some rough times, too, where Randy ministered to people in a different kind of way, right? We can talk about that after this. But what I would come back to you and I would tell you is I have nothing but the utmost respect for someone who I would consider to be the big brother that I never had, based on the way that he stepped up to the plate when he was needed, okay? With that, I'm going to wrap up, and I'm just going to say this. I have no doubt in my mind where Randy is. I had a conversation with Joy last night. I said, if you were to talk to Randy right now, he wouldn't have had it any other way. He's seen Mama Montine by now, and he's seen Gerald, and he's waiting on the rest of us to come home. So, at the end, to close this out, I'd just like to say, Randy, what you did not go unnoticed. God has a reward for him in heaven, and there's no question in my mind if anybody deserves a crown, it's Randy. All right? Thank you so much.
Wow. See what I'm talking about, man? Yep, I had the best big brother ever. This is Jordy Edmondson. He's also from Georgia. He's a alpha boy, and we play ball together, and he was great friends and been a good friend of my family.
And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. Is that what this is for? I talked with my wife. We were talking about this before we came, and this kind of surprised me. I mean, the news was shocking, but we all have known people that have passed close to us. But this week, I just really dwelt on Randy. It just was on my heart, and he was on my mind, and I just thought about life, and every time our paths crossed, whether it was playing alpha football back in those days or just when Danny and Dee and their family lived next to ours, and Randy would come over and visit and check on us. But what a special guy. But here's why I said that verse. you think that all things are purposed, and it is, and that's kind of the general gist of the verse. But, a couple of months ago, that verse there's something that stood out in me. And it's the called according to his purpose. And I think this is why Randy just was really on my heart, because he is the called according to his purpose. He was one of those special people that as long as I knew him, he got it. I didn't get it early on. I was raised in the church, but I didn't get it and ran pretty hard at a time. But Randy always did, and I loved being around him every time our paths crossed. He didn't have to preach to me or anything. He just, you knew where he stood. You knew what he was all about. He always made you laugh. He always made you feel good and made you feel loved. And that is a special gift and a calling. And he just was consistent through his whole life. And let's see if I can kind of verbalize this. It is not actors. It's not pro football players. It's not the president. It's not celebrities. It's not even pastors of mega churches. You think of anybody that the world would say, I get that guy. The people that make the biggest impact in my life are the called. They're Randy Parmers. And if you kind of think about this, and you guys will all know people like this, they are foundational to my world, to our world. They're just always there. You don't have to talk to them every day. They are what anchors life. And this world is crazy out of control right now. I think everybody in this world would agree to that. And so when special people like Randy, that we're privileged to know, and they're in our life, they are the stability of our world. They really are. At least they are for me. And those are the people that when you have a week like this and you get shocking news, then he comes forward, and it's like he's made even a bigger impact this week on my life, and he's not even here. That's the power of the called, And I don't know if I expressed that well enough, but if you think about it, there are people in our walk that are that way. Randy is a gift. He is one of those guys. And thank the Lord that he crossed my life and my wife's life. I mean, what a blessing to have him in our life and to have the impact. And it's a constant ministry. I'm not a technology guy. I don't like technology. And when I read the obituary, I saw that he had a YouTube page, and I'm like, well, I didn't know that. So I spent yesterday hanging out with Randy. And every one of you should do it. I mean, it was incredible. It was Randy, and it just was comforting. And he ministered to me. And he makes me know that, it's shocking, but these are grounding moments. They are to me. They are grounding moments, because this thing we're walking through is a distraction, my friends. The reality of what's going on here is that we are all going to cross and step into eternity. That is the truth of it. And I'm sorry to be so heavy, but it's just, this is the way it came to me with Randy and my thoughts about this. And he's a brother, he was a son, he was a pastor, he was a neighbor, he was a friend. He is a son of God. And he is with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for eternity right now. And when you lose people like Randy and they cross on, here's the grounding part about it for me. It just nails me down where I've got to see my brother in Christ again. And so I'm determined to do that. I'm so blessed to have known him. He really has enriched me, even more so now. Again, go check him out. Let him talk to you, But anyway, welcome home, my brother. Welcome home.
All right. So next is going to be Pastor Tony. And guys, my brother was an associate pastor for Pastor Tony. Pastor Tony is the pastor at Smyrna Church of the Nazarene. And several of the people here are from the Smyrna Church of the Nazarene. And they've been so supportive and encouraging my brother. And so here's Pastor Tony. Thank you, brother.
I told Danny, he and I texted multiple times, and I agree with Jordy, and my family would second this, that I'm not a technology guy for the most part either. Sometimes that's not good. But I told him that it was not hard to like Randy. That was not a difficult job. That was not a difficult chore. One thing that stands out to me, and we didn't know each other nearly as long as some of you have known him, but his encouragement to me was one of the things that stood out. Even if he couldn't be in service, I would get an email or a text, "Hey man, that was an awesome message. I'm praying for you." We went through some family things a while back, and Randy was one of the ones that consistently stayed in contact with me, and encouraged me in different things. And he and I have had this conversation many times, and I don't know about the rest of you that may be involved in ministry, especially youth ministry like Randy was for several years. We wonder as pastors, and my son, our youngest son, is now pastoring in North Carolina. He pastors the New Beginnings Church of the Nazarene in Asheboro. And I was saying something the other day about being a senior pastor, and he said, "Dad, that's old terminology." I said, "Okay, what am I then?" He said, "You're the lead pastor." I didn't know if that was supposed to pump me up or not. It was different. Because I said something to him about being the senior pastor, and he corrected me just, momentarily. He said, "No, I'm the lead pastor." But Randy and Evan, our son, didn't know each other all that long. But he texted me when I notified him about Randy's passing, and he said, "Dad, I can't be there for the service, but I want to write something. And would you read it to the group?" So I talked to Danny, and he said, "Yeah." So it may be a little bit hard for me to get through this, even though I didn't write it, so just bear with me. It's entitled, "My Buddy." Just simple. He said, "I can't think of many things harder in life than dealing with the heartbreak that comes with loss. It's weird, though." He said, "Sometimes it just seems different. Sometimes it seems even more difficult, even if that is possible." He says, I wonder why. I wonder why we only think about that when we didn't spend time with a person and we don't have that chance to spend time with them anymore. He said, "I wonder why we feel guilty about not doing more with the time that we had, and we didn't do more to make memories while we could." Randy, one of the only guys I knew who could rock a fedora, and was bold enough, I had to look at him a little bit there, and was bold enough to wear one to my wedding. Randy, you're the only guy who ever believed in me before you knew me. The only guy that called me pastor before I even knew that was the direction God was leading. Randy, my buddy. He goes on. He said, "If you knew Randy, you knew that he was passionate about everything in life. He desperately wanted to fulfill his call in ministry, whether it was through youth, his video series, preaching, or even just being there to listen when you needed somebody to listen. He was there, and he gave it his all of the time. Randy knew how to live his life, and he knew that relationships matter and that he could be the difference And he didn't want to stop until that difference had been made. It's funny. Before I started writing this, I was worried about rambling on too long because I felt like there was too much to say about the man and not enough time to say it. But now, as I'm sitting here struggling to even see through keyboard through the tears, wondering why I feel speechless, and now knowing for sure that there's never enough time in this thing we call life. I wonder why. I wonder why, Randy, I feel kind of guilty about not having more conversations with you. I wonder why. Missing the opportunities and getting busy and say, I'll catch you next time, bro. And then getting busy again. Randy, you believed in me, and it seems silly to say now, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we didn't do more together. I'm sorry. But I guess that's part of it. Why, though? Why are things so obvious or not so obvious to us until there comes a time when we're forced to take a look at it? It really doesn't make sense. But I remember you. You always had a smile on your face, and you always wanted to make people laugh. So enough of this sad stuff, because that's not the reason we're gathered today. That's not what you want us to be feeling right now. You want us to be happy. So instead, I'll say thank you for believing in me. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for devoting your life to making a difference. Thank you for praying for me ceaselessly. Thank you for living a life that left no question about what kind of man you really are. And most of all, Randy, thank you for letting us be a part of it. So to all of you who knew and loved Randy, I want to share the challenge that I believe Randy left behind. And this is it. I challenge you to be a Randy. I challenge you to believe in the good in all people, to encourage every person you come in contact with, and to love unconditionally. I challenge you to take life serious, to live with purpose, and to never just go about speaking empty words that have no meaning. I challenge you to live a life with meaning and to do everything in your power to make sure others know that what that meaning is, and to go an extra mile and make sure that everybody else knows who they are and that what they do has meaning too. You know, Randy had this way about him, a way of making all this look easy, but it's not. The reality is that Randy chose a path that often yields little or no fruit. But Randy also chose to live every minute of it. And now, because of that choice, what a privilege of carrying this on in his honor. We have the privilege and the obligation to make sure the legacy of Randy Parmer does not exit this world, even though he physically has. So whatever and whoever Randy was to you, I challenge you, don't let it stop there. Be a Randy. Crazy, curly-headed, fun-loving, life-living Uncle Randy. I love you, man. I wish I'd have got the chance to tell you. But I promise to make you proud of me. Rest in peace. Your buddy, Eben.
Just so y'all know, Pastor Tony, he beat me to the door, to Randy's door. So he doesn't know me that well, but I know him that well because he was at my brother's door before me. That's all I got to say about that. My niece, Lindsay Stone, is going to come up and speak.
loved him. I knew he loved me. There was no doubt in my mind how much he loved me. So I was thinking about what he would have me say, what I could say that would exemplify him, that would show you who he was to me and would show you his heart. And I thought about a couple months ago, he called me up and he said, hey, if you could leave only one Bible verse to your children, only one verse that they'll know their entire life to show them who God is and teach them about the Word of God, what Bible verse would you choose? And it kind of took me back a little bit because I couldn't just pick one verse. I felt like, there's so many different parts that I wanted my children to know. But he immediately knew the verse that he would want to share because he felt it encompassed everything that the Bible needs to tell you. And that verse was John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. My Uncle Block was the kind of man who exemplified Christ because of how he gave. I don't think that there is a person in here that he has not given in some way to. He gave his time, like so many people have talked about, through visiting and calling and just showing up. He showed up for absolutely every single important event in my entire life that I can ever remember. I don't remember a thing that he didn't come to. I don't remember a time that he didn't show up for my kids. He gave us his time. He gave us anything that he ever had. He split the candy bar with us. He took us to meals. He gave us clothing and decorations for our house and find us little things. He was always bringing us something that he thought of to give us. My Uncle Danny told me a story of some neighbors that said that Uncle Block was always also bringing them little gifts when he came home. He gave many people here the gift of his ministry through being their youth pastor or their lead pastor, or the ministry that he gave through his friendship. Some important things he gave to me. He gave to me the gift of music, and not just through church music, but he taught me to love all music. He taught me to sing silly songs and constantly sing to my children every single thing that they ever do, about everything that they ever do. He was always singing and making things up. He was really there for me when I was a single mother and helped me start the Parmer's Market, where we shared our love of antiquing and finding cool pieces. And he gave me a business that helped me provide for my kids. He gave me spiritual guidance, always prompting me to dig deeper in the Word and prompting me to love more. And mostly, he gave me love. I never once doubted that he loved me unconditionally, that he always, always loved me. And he gave my kids love. One of the things that really touched my heart the most since his passing, that night when I found out and I was making calls to people, my son Liam looked up to me and he said, "Mom, this is the hardest thing for me," because he was like a father figure to me. So even though Block was not an actual father to anyone, he was a father to us. And we were so thankful for that. But I know today that if he could give one more thing to everyone here, it would be that verse that he wanted to leave as his legacy. God so loved the world, God so loved you, that he gave his only begotten Son, that if you just believe in him, you will not perish but also have everlasting life. Thank you.
All right. And last, Kaylee Montine, my little Montine, named after my mama. I'm very proud of my daughter. She's awesome.
Don't make me cry.
Yeah, keep that up to your mouth.
Okay. I wrote on my phone because I sat down in my bed and then everything happened, and I wrote kind of how I was feeling, but then I looked back and I was like, I felt that I was talking about myself, and I kept, dreading on. I was like, I don't want to get up here and speak for me, but I wanted to speak for Uncle Block and, show what he's done in my life and many other people's. So I'm going to read off my phone because I won't be able to stay focused if I just try and talk all over the place. So I sat in I kept telling my dad I was scared, and he told me a quote. He said, "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway." So that's what I'm doing. So, let me find everyone has different perspectives on how they viewed Randy. All were positive ways, but every relationship was vastly different. Growing up, I always had Uncle Block around, whether it was Christmas or Thanksgiving, or just the random times he would come pick my brothers and I up and take us back to Georgia with him. I remember his house in Scott, Georgia. It had a playground, and he would always take us out there and play on it with us. He also had a big box of Army men and bases, and we would all sit on the floor, and we'd play it, and then we'd knock each other's stuff over. There was a game me, my brothers, and him made up. It's called the Booger River, and he was the Loch Ness Monster, but we played in our bedrooms, and he would throw us across the beds, and we would play for hours and hours and hours Christmas Eve, because he would always be there to be there the next morning when we opened our gifts. We just enjoyed that genuine time we had with each other. Looking back, I wish I could just have one of those moments one more time. Block had a very playful personality. He loved to do things that most people would be too ashamed to do because they were too old or they would get embarrassed. That's one of the things I love so much about Uncle Block, how secure he was within himself in his relationship with Christ. He did what brought joy to God, always doing things that would put smiles on many people's faces. A few things that made Uncle Block who he was is how he was always so proud of his family and anyone he knew. It didn't matter where you were or who you were around, he never failed to show you his constant love for his family and friends. Uncle Block was able to see anyone and everyone in their best light, no matter what he knew about you. I believe that's only something God can gift you with. Because it's just in human nature to point out and worry about others' flaws instead of looking at who someone is deep down or who they could be. Uncle Block could look past all of that. Uncle Block constantly reminded me of how much he loved me and how proud he was of me. He would write me letters frequently, and I kept this one note he had given me when my oldest brother Caleb had left for boot camp. It was a very rough time, and I would talk to Uncle Block about it a lot when we were younger, or when we were together. Even though y'all know and have experienced the way Randy words things to bring light and positivity to situations, to make you feel proud and secure no matter the circumstances, I just wanted to read the note. He said, "Kaylee, you have done an exceptional job at being there for your mom, or your dad, mom, and Cohen during this time of transition. Thank you for stepping up. You have a compassionate heart. I pray God will protect you and use your love for him and others to impact people's lives for the good. Love, Block." I don't know, I left all the notes in some box. I couldn't find them, but this one was in my nightstand, so glad I kept that. You hear people talk about bearing fruit a lot, and most of the time it just doesn't radiate through people, but with Uncle Block, that's all he ever put out. I look back at the messages he would send me when we were texting back and forth, or the voicemails he would always leave me. He was always so happy and so excited for the little things most people wouldn't make a big deal about. He cared so much about what was going on in everyone's lives. He was so amazing at keeping up with people. I don't know how he did it. Uncle Block was so giving and thoughtful. He was always willing to give anyone everything he had if you needed it. I could go on for forever, but I think I'll end this here. This is all really hard, but I know where he is, and with that I find myself so content in my heart and so happy that he's with the Lord, where I hope all of us get to be one day.
See, God is solid. He makes all things work together for the good of them that are called according to his purpose and who love the Lord. So I got to tell you, I haven't had a lot of sleep. So I wrote a lot of things down. They're probably all over the place. And so I need to do a couple things real quick. I'm telling you, it's hard to follow all that, man, because all these guys, look at them. They're intelligent. You know, these guys are like well-respected people who got well-respected jobs and all this kind of stuff, and then there's me. So anyway, so one of the first things I want to do, Fred and my son could not be here. And Shane is in Germany, I believe, and we hope that he's online and he's watching. And if he is, we're telling him, Randy loved you, brother, and we really wish you could be here, but we understand. So thank you for being a friend to us. And for my son, he's a Marine, and he's not here. He is in Hawaii. He's stationed in Hawaii. And I want to tell him, roll tide, semper fi, all glory be to God. My son, your brother, your uncle, and your father, and your mama, we all love you. All right. Okay. So, man, I thought about all this. Like, my wife can tell you, oh, man, I got such a great wife. You just have no idea. We probably do, because y'all think, well, she's married to him. It's got to be tough. But all night long, man, she was like, she could just feel me. I would get up and roll around, and I was wrestling, and I'm just talking, and I'm talking, and then she's like, just rubbing my head and rubbing my back and telling me, are you all right? And, just checking on me. And I was like, well, I think I want to say this. I think I want to say that, because I was like, my goal is to honor my brother, and I want to lift him up. And by doing so, I think that you all know his life. So it was all about Jesus, okay? So don't worry. But we're fixing to get silly, okay? All right. But I wanted to tell some stories. I thought, well, you got to talk about something that you know, and you got to be real. I think Clay was telling me, just be yourself. Spendo said, just be you. Talk about just be yourself. So that's what I'm going to do. The things I know about, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a well-respected businessman. But what I do know is what it's like to be me. I'm the best at being me, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my perspective of being a son to Gerald Parmer and Montine Parmer, and a brother to Joy Parmer and Randy Parmer. To start off with, my mom was awesome. Man, my mom loved on me. She taught me so much, and she had so much fun. This guy right here is a nut. My mama loves to laugh. He's always made my mama laugh, and I try to carry on that tradition. One of the things that she taught me, though, just in life, and I said this over her grave whenever I was with Miss Glenda and my kids over my mom's grave. And they said, if you want to say anything, say something. And I said, well, my mom always taught me, and she lived it out. Danny, look for the people who nobody's looking for, and let them know that you know that they're there, and make them feel special. And I was like, wow. You'd have to know my mom and then what it is that maybe she went through in her childhood to know what it is she was talking about. So I've always wanted to do that. My dad, he taught me so much. One of the things he taught me is whenever we were riding around when I was a teenager when we moved here, and, I just moved here, so I didn't really know a ton of people. I mean, I knew Bird Nest and some people, but I was mostly having to ride around with him. And he's like, Danny, I just want to tell you, we might not have everything else that everybody else has. I don't know if y'all know this, but like pastors aren't rich, okay? So, but he said, what I want you to know is we're rich in a way that you can't take it out of your pocket and count it on the table. And I was just listening. He's like, we're rich in friendships. Like, we're wealthy, son. We have friends. I mean, look around you. I mean, this is unbelievable. Y'all should have been here last night. If you were here last night, then you know what I'm talking about. Like, it was a line. This line was so long, it's like they were waiting to ride the Scream Machine at Six Flags. I mean, it was like 3 hours long, and people, a lot of our friends just never even got to get in the line. They just sat down, especially a lot of these right here and these. They just sat down, and they waited for 3 hours to not even ride the ride. They just waiting to get to tell, not Randy, but me and Joy, that they loved Randy. So my dad taught me about that, and this is the evidence of that. Then my sister, I have the best big sister in the world. I mean, I'm telling you. She loved on me. She put me in my best light. She always encouraged me and lifted me up and taught me a lot of great lessons in life. But I always tell her that, and I don't think that she really knows that, but you have to make sure that you let the people who you love, let them know. Let them know where they stand. Don't miss that opportunity. My brother, and I'm going to go into some stories about him in just a moment, but whenever my mom passed away, when my mom passed away, my brother always had my back, and he loved me, but he loved me more. And then when my dad passed away, my brother began to love on me. And if you know him, he loved on you too. He loved on you so much he laid on you and leaned on you. And it almost was uncomfortable. And me, it's on my own insecurities that I'm like Reuben, and I'd be like, man, get off of me. You embarrass me in front of everybody, man. We're guys. So, like, this past Sunday, Dee and I, we never go to Kroger to buy all of our groceries, but on this day we did. And we're just going through there, and she's over somewhere else, and I'm somewhere, and I hear Randy call for the baggers up front. And I'm like, attaboy, Block, And I don't care. I mean, that's kind of what we used to do, just be loud in a Kroger and wherever we are. And I get with Dee. We meet up, and we're going up into the aisle, and Randy, like he always did, he would go, hey, look. There, that's my sister-in-law right there. That's my sister-in-law. Come here. And he would love on her. My wife is very loving, like my mom. They'd love all of each other, and then he'd come over to me, and he'd start trying to love on me. DP. And I'm like, man, come on, man. We're in public, What are you doing? So, and it wasn't until I was going to his door to realize it wasn't until they told me he's passed that it had come back to me that my daughter had told me about a week ago that my dad's just not that affectionate. And man, wow. I was like, yes, I am. What are you talking about? And she's like, no, like you don't hug on me and stuff like that. And they always would kind of be like, why are you so mean to Randy? And I'm like, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't think about it as being mean. I thought that that's just what me and Randy did. We just did that to each other. So it hit me that maybe I needed to make some changes in my life. I needed to whenever you're a guy and you go, what's up, man? What's happening? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I love you. I'm cool. You're cool. All that kind of stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about. I can do that. But it's like letting somebody love me and me love them. It was tougher. So I got to make some changes. And one of the things I'm going to do is start to lead by example tonight. So I'm going to change that starting now. I love you. Come here, buddy. I'm proud of you. I love you. I'm proud of you too. You hear? All right. Now I got that out of the way. All right, so I got to tell the perspective of a little brother. So we start in Scott, Georgia, all right, in the deep South. I know a lot of y'all probably think he sounds like he's from Boston, but I'm not. But so Dap can tell you, and Tracy Souls right there can tell you. Tracy Souls is one of the fastest people you'll ever meet, but it's because of Mike Souls, who lived up the way from us. He was a terror. I'm telling you, like, I believe terrorists and serial killers call Mike to get ideas. You think I'm kidding, but he'll tell you that this is the truth. Like Mike Souls, who lived up the street from us, he would beat me, smack me around. He would hog tie me. He would gag me. He would throw me in the closet on top of some shoes and then shut the closet, turn the lights off, and leave his house and leave me there. And so he did this kind of stuff to me all the time. You got to understand. Now, today they call that bullying. In the deep South, in the country, we call that childhood. So my mom, once again, as I told you, my mom is awesome. My mom is like, she is got my back. And she would tell my brother, Randy, if you let that Mike Souls beat up on your brother again without getting in a fight with him, I'm going to beat the tar out of you. And it was the truth. And so he and Mike Souls fought several times because of me. Mike Souls could never catch Tracy Souls. We would play freeze tag and chase and stuff in the outside of church all the time. And Tracy never got caught. He would eventually come up and go, look, tag me, and then I'll go tag somebody else. Because you couldn't carry him. He was scared to death of Mike Souls. Mike Souls made me fast and elusive. And so he's probably watching. Thank you, Mike, brother. But Randy, well, it was the deep South in the country. So he smacked me around, beat me up, throw me on the ground, get on top of me, put his knees on my shoulders, and just thump me in the face. I know y'all think he's all loving and all this other kind of stuff. He would also wipe underarm sweat and put it on me. Like I said, it's the deep South, it's the country. So that's how we're raised. But here's the thing, I loved him. I loved him anyway. I loved Mike Souls. And I loved all of those guys. We grew up, that's just how it was, wasn't it, Marty? Wasn't it, Tracy? I mean, that's how it was. But I loved him anyway. Whenever we left Georgia, moved to Lynette, Randy started playing football. And I'm going to tell you something. Let's say, first of all, this week I was thinking, man, I wish I was half the man Randy was. And then I thought, I am. But I looked up to my brother, and he always had my back, and he always loved me. Even then when I went in my own direction, he always loved me, and he always had my back. But one of the things I really admired about my brother is he was Mr. Congeniality. I mean, clearly. But he was even back then. Everybody loved him. They thought he was hilarious, and he was a really good football player. Everybody, if you grew up in the 70s in Alabama, football was king. Not rappers, okay, not drug dealers, not musicians. It was football if you played football. My brother played football, and he was pretty good. How many of you, if you passed away this week, would your coach call your family? Like Coach Dan Washburn, my brother's head football coach 40 years ago, called me and told me what he thought about my brother. We also shared some stories, and here's one of the stories. In the playoffs, Coach Washburn said that, and I remember this, and I know that you, Tracy and Terry, y'all probably remember. Where's Cornbread? Is he here? Is Cornbread not here? James Cornelius Hanley? Wow. Okay, all right. Well, anyway, he would know too, because football was king in the South at Lynette, and he talked about that they had this play they kept running, it was kept being successful, and Randy was playing left defensive end. He told him, he said, you follow the back out of the backfield. Randy followed the back out of the backfield, intercepted, run it in for a touchdown. Randy got in the end zone, and like me, bird nest. Billy White Shoes Johnson. So also Randy was, the Coach Washburn called him and Dennis Brooks and Steve Bentley the Three Amigos, and that kind of stuff. David Burdett, who was my next door neighbor in Lynette, again, this just tells you about the friendship of Randy Parmer. He drove up here 5 hours last night. To bring me 2 footballs from Lynette, Alabama, where Randy played ball. 5 hours. He stayed here for 3 hours and then stuck around so he could tell me and Joy how much he loved us and appreciated us. Who does that? I mean, who does that? Who drives 8.5 hours? Who flies from Houston? I mean, who drives from Georgia? I mean, unbelievable. Last night we're in here, and all these people waiting in line. I saw some people, and a lot of people I know, but I didn't know these people. I had some people, like there were a group of them. I wasn't sure who that was. I was like, who is that, Joel? You know who that? I don't know. They come up. Turns out there's all these people from Kroger, where Randy works, part-time at Kroger. He's probably been working there for 6 months. There were so many people, we wondered how that the store was being run last night. Seriously. And they told Paul, they said they had other workers come in from other Krogers to work at Kroger so they could be here. Wow. Who does that? That's unbelievable, man. That's my brother. So I'm super proud of my brother. And hey, Jamie, come here. Let me give you this real quick. That was my quarterback in high school. Me and Birdness and Jamie played high school football together. And he has a football, and he's going to sign it, and then he's going to start passing it around. Y'all sign it. Those footballs are going to come back to me and George. She'll have one, and I'll have one to remember my brother. Jordy. Go Alpha. He's going to sign it. He's going to pass it around. Y'all try to sign those footballs for us so we can have those. I would really greatly appreciate that. Now, so many things that I wanted to discuss, and a lot of it was kind of, getting all deep and heartfelt, but they covered that. So here's something I want to do. I've always wondered why it is that whenever it is we have a funeral, that people, if this person is a Christian, like my mom, like my dad, and like my brother, why is everybody so sad? Why is everybody crying? I thought we was going to celebrate his life. So we're going to celebrate Randy's life right here in just a moment, because I got to thinking, how many of you all like football in here? Raise your hand. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. Well, hey, look, I'm Roll Tide, he's Roll Tide, there's a lot of Roll Tide, but there's a lot of War Eagle, okay? And there's a lot of Bulldogs, and that's okay because, you know, you got to have somebody to love and somebody to hate, you know what I mean? Otherwise, what's the reason of competing, you know what I'm saying? So, but at Lynette, when Randy scored, and at Lynette, every single time that we either scored or went ahead, there was a song that was played, and it was called Sweet Caroline. Anybody know that? If you know it, raise your hand. Okay, all right. So, do you have Sweet Caroline? All right. So here's something that I'm going to do, and I'm going to need all of y'all to participate with me. I need Tracy to come up here. I need Terry Walker to come up here because they were at Lynette. They know what I'm talking about. Tracy Souls, I'm going to get him to come up here because he's just a character. Dee, do you want to come up here? Because we're going to be right here in front of, I can just come on down there, right here in front of Randy. And all right, come here. All right, and then I'm going to want every one of you all to stand up. Okay? And I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that who my brother was and that we're lifting him up. And first of all, how many people remember whenever they watch a national championship football game and they're watching their favorite team, what happened, exactly where you were and who did it? I do, because I remember when it was 2nd and 23 in overtime when Tua Tagovailoa threw the ball to Devontae Smith. And in our house, we all jumped up and I threw the remote and the TV went off because the ball was still in the air. And we were all hugging and I was like, wait, I don't even know if he scored. So we had to turn the TV back on and see that he scored. But I knew who was there, what happened, who made the play. And those guys don't even know me. I don't really even know them. I'm not on that team, but I'm emotionally invested in that team. Every one of you, because you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be taking your time out of your day to be here if this wasn't the case. You have been a part of a highlight reel with my brother. And so we're going to celebrate today someone who ran the race, someone who pursued the prize of the high calling. And today, not today, but this week, he crossed on over the goal line, okay? And we're going to sing this song and we're going to celebrate like he just scored. I want you to sing along this song with us. And then whenever we're finished with the song, I'm going to take my brother and I'm going to lift him up. And when I lift him up, you cheer like he just scored a touchdown. All right? Okay. Hit it. Here.
Where it began, I can't begin to knowing, but then I know it's growing strong. Wasn't the spring, and spring became the summer. Who'd have believed you'd come along? Touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, dun dun dun. Good times never seem so good. Something. I've been inclined look at the night, and it don't seem so lonely. We fill it up with only two. And when I hurt it runs off my shoulders. How can I hurt when holding you? Warm, touching warm, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, dun dun dun. Good times never seem so good, so good, so good. I've been inclined, dun, 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 to believe they never would. Oh, no, no. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good.
So good. So good.
Sweet Caroline, bum, bum, bum. I believe they never could. Sweet Caroline, bum, bum, bum. Good times never seem so good.
So good. All right. Hold this for me. Hold up my mouth. This is my brother, Randy Parmer. He ran the race. He pursued the prize. And he crossed the line. And he's in heaven. Randy, that's my brother. Woo! And now for some seriousness. This is my cousin Fred, and I love him very much. He's going to take over from here. You got your own?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody stand up. If you got to go to the bathroom, do it while we sing, because we're not quite over yet. But one of Randy's favorite songs that he loved was "It Is Well With My Soul." It's in the hymn book. It's going to be on the screen. And my wife is going to play on the piano. What I'd like us to do for a little brevity, let's sing all 4 verses before we sing the chorus. We'll just sing the chorus once, but let's sing the 4 verses. And now's your time to exit, because we're about 2/3 of the way through. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Second verse. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control, that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and hath shed his own blood for my soul. Third verse. My sin, oh the bliss of this glorious thought, my sin not in part, but the child beside. The clouds be rolled back as a scroll. The drum shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. If you believe that, sit down. Some of you know that my wife and I were overseas 20 years. Some of our years were in Africa. I've been in 6-hour funeral services in Africa. But relax, this one should be over in 30 more minutes, would be a 2-hour service. Not bad. Genesis 6:9 says, Noah was a righteous man, a just man, perfect in his generation, and Noah walked with God. Micah 6:8 says, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, to act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Genesis 5:24 says, And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. I couldn't believe when I got the word. As some of you, I was shell-shocked, and I thought, oh, it can't be. But as I thought about it and meditated on it and prayed about it and thought about Randy, I thought, you know, in that instance, if Randy could come back and be with us, I don't think he would. One microsecond of heaven, you'll understand it all. Now we see through darkly, but then face through a glass darkly, but then we will see face to face. Randy Parmer knew the secret to life, and here it is. He walked with God. Say those 4 words with me. He walked with God. Say, Randy walked with God. Randy walked with God. And that influence of how he walked and how he talked has influenced the rest of us. Oh, it's so evident today. These testimonies, these stories, we could go all night with the stories. I didn't get to see Randy much in the last while, but every week or two, I'd call him or he'd call me, and it would just lighten my heart when I'd hear him say, hey, cuz. Now, I know he called some of you cuz. We were blood cousins. Talking about Montine made me think. I'd come back from a summer of traveling 20-some states in the U.S. and across, and Dinah and I had been dating and going together, and Trevec was about to start back, and I don't know, I was thinking about my relationships with girls and young ladies and women had averaged a few months, and then it was, let's see where we go from here, and I even breathed that, and Montine took me aside and put her finger in my face, and she said, if you let this one get away, that's the stupidest thing you've ever done in your whole life. That was the smartest word that Montine ever told me. Dinah and I, in one more month, will have been married 49 years. And Montine and Gerald had a lot to do with that. I told Randy on multiple occasions the way that he took care of his dad, Reverend Gerald Parmer, G Money. Somebody wrote me this week and said, "What does that G Money mean?" I said, well, he was the opposite of a rapper. And Danny explained it all to me. He said, we were trying to give him a rap name and said OG Money, you know, the original gangster. Said he was the opposite, so we just called him G Money. I thought that was great. I said, Randy, you're one of my heroes. And he was. The way he took care of his dad in those days has already been said so eloquently. Randy walked with God. He also walked with his family. If you were a direct blood relation with Randy, stand up right now. Quite a crew. Yes. There are cousins here, some of y'all have never met, that I invited them to stay for lunch today, by the way. Randy walked well with his family. He loved Montine, he loved Gerald and Joy and Danny and their families. Randy just loved his family. I mean, there was so much love from Randy, and he spread it around. We've heard about that. Randy loved his friends. If you considered Randy one of your friends, raise your hand. I think almost everybody would. There's only a few people that haven't met Randy. And I was telling them beforehand, what a wonderful blessing you missed. And you could tell by all that we were hearing, Randy loved his friends. Some people called him Block. If you ever called him Block, raise your hand. Tell us what Block meant.
It is a derivative of blockhead because his head is a big, gigantic cement block.
I wanted you to hear it from the horse's mouth. I didn't give him the name. I've heard it for years. They would even.
But we also called him Blocktopus or Count Blockula.
Count Blockula, yeah.
Or Block Party. So
there were a lot of block names. Yeah. Block Party, Count Blockula. Those were some good ones. Some of us called him Cuz. He was my blood cousin, and I don't know, it just gave me a lift whenever phone would ring and I'd pick it up and he'd say, "Hey, Cuz." I knew who it was. It was Randy. It was fun and fulfilling to walk and talk with Randy. Would you agree with that? Yes, you would. When he was with you, or even on the phone, he made you feel like you were the most important person on the planet. He just had that ability to do so. You felt like you were the only one. He could make you feel that way. You always felt like you were a better person after walking and talking and laughing with Randy, and you were. He just made you a better person. What a sense of humor Randy had. Man, I always thought that I would precede him in death, as many of us did. There's 10 years apart between Randy and I. And we already had it lined up. At my funeral, he was going to do river dance for y'all. He and Tom Cook and whoever else. You had to weigh over a certain weight to get on the Randy and Fred's river dance team. And I'm almost below that now. I was at 324 when Randy and I used to river dance. I'm now 250-something. I'm kind of missing out a little bit. I'm half the person Randy was. Almost, not quite. But let me sum up Randy by saying Randy was full of love. He was just filled with love. I came up with what I call the top 10 for Randy. First of all, Randy loved God. He served him. He quoted scripture. He preached sermons to you and you didn't even know he was preaching sometimes. Secondly, Randy loved his family. Like I said, if you were part of the family, you're here. Third, Randy, and these are not all in the order, but they're just things came to my mind. Randy loved sports and especially Alabama football. Oh, man. As much as I'd hear him say, hey, cuz, I'd hear him say, roll tide. So I came up with a phrase for today, and it's roll Randy. Okay, when I count to three, everybody just say, roll Randy. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Roll Randy. All right, there we go. Fourth, Randy really liked his work at Kroger's. Is there anybody here that works at Kroger's? There were some last night, 20 or 30, they say. Huh? Oh, okay, good, good. Anybody here that shops at Kroger's? Okay. I was thinking about my Kroger story. It was around Christmas. Dinah went to the store to get some food, and I had on my Santa Claus suit. Now, that's another story. Randy would call me. He called me one time. I was down at a national championship in my Santa suit. That's how I got my ticket and got in. And Randy, I'm at the ball game, national championship. Randy said, Fred, is that you at the national championship in a Santa suit? I said, uh-huh. He said, was that you interviewed by USA Today? I said, uh-huh. He said, well, roll tide, baby. Well, anyway, Dinah went into Kroger's. I didn't even think of this, Dinah, till all this talk about Kroger's. I had on my Santa suit, and I thought, oh, this is too good to pass up. So I go into Kroger's in my full Santa gear, and I'm looking for Dinah. She's over in the frozen meat section. And I walk up to her, and I grab her, and I put a big one on her. And all of a sudden, every security police in the Kroger's chain are on top of me, just about. I mean, they said, lady, is this man harassing you? She said, this man's been harassing me for about 40 years. It was all I could do to keep him from locking me up in Kroger's. Another story for another time. Randy loved his church, whether it was Mount Olive or Jasper or Bethel or Smyrna or Wichita First, or on and on and on the stories could go. If you're from one of these churches, raise your hand, or Wrightsville or wherever. Yeah, he loved his church. He loved the Church of the Nazarene. Randy loved single adult ministry, SoloCon. If you were ever part of anything SoloCon with Randy, raise your hand. Joy said something to me on the phone, said, man, Randy dated some precious girls. She said, anyone I would have loved to have as a sister-in-law. And I said, well, I'd be tempted to say, if you ever dated Randy, stand up. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. That'd be over the line. Even for me, Randy, that'd be over the line, man. He invited me to be the speaker at a SoloCon in Panama City one time, and that was a trip. I enjoyed it. It was a good trip. Randy loved Trevecca. If you ever attended Trevecca, raise your hand. I knew there were quite a few alumni here. And the friendships he made at Trevecca have gone on and on. And when that guy stood up, I thought he was passing a plate around. I was going to say, only at Randy's funeral would we. I was tempted to take an offering, but I didn't. Anyway. Oh, that reminds me, SoloCon made a good contribution to help with the expenses. Isn't that right, Danny? Thank y'all. That was SoloCon from L.A., Lower Alabama, the South Alabama district. Randy loved his neighborhood. I don't know how many of you saw that last blog. That'll be our closing today. Randy took time to get to know his neighbors, and they said, he knows us by name. He said, he cares about us. He asks about us. Kind of made me a little ashamed of myself. I thought Randy knows more neighbors in a short time he's been there than I know in my neighborhood right now. Randy just set a pace for us in a lot of different areas. Randy loved humor. Was it Paul that said, Randy's joking with Jesus right now? Randy could crack up laughing so much when he was telling you a story that sometimes you didn't even get the punchline. You never heard the punchline because he would be telling it and he'd get to laughing so hard you couldn't hear the last part. But you knew it was funny, so you laughed anyway. Randy loved good food and fellowship. Somebody told me they went to a restaurant with Randy in Smyrna. Said every waitress and waiter in the place either high-fived Randy or yelled across the room, "Hey, Randy!" I bet he knows every waiter and waitress in the whole county because he loved good food and good fellowship. I'm going to take a survey now of y'all. We're moving ahead. We're doing all right. Let me see. I got 4 pages. Okay, 3 are down. All right. It's a survey, so if I had raised your hand, but some of you are about to go to sleep on me, so when I call this out, stand up real quickly if you're in this category. If you ever ate out with Randy, stand up. Yeah, most of the oh my goodness. Block. Okay. If you ever played football, basketball, or softball, or any sport with Randy, stand up. Or table game, or whatever. All right. If you ever laughed with Randy, stand up. Wow. We knew Randy had greatness all over him. Joy told me that I don't know how young he was, but he was the prince of the Pine Tree Festival of Johnson County. How old was he? First grade. He had greatness stamped on him in the first grade. The prince of the Pine Tree Festival of Johnson County. Yeah. If you ever went to Panama City with Randy, stand up. Oh my goodness. You can tell everybody's got a suntan. Yeah. Well, that's something I admired about y'all's family. I didn't want my family to follow in this way. But they'd say, hey, we're going to Panama City. Anybody want to come? Come to vacation with us. Get your own place to stay. But tonight we'll all be at Captain Anderson's for good seafood, That's great. I don't want everybody going on my vacation. I just want Dinah. That's good enough for me. But if you ever went to church with Randy, stand up. Oh, my goodness. The rest of y'all backslid, didn't you? If you ever went to Camp Adrian or Alabama camp or Tennessee camp, stand up with Randy. Yeah, I did too. I was a speaker at once. He was a counselor. If you ever sat up half the night and laughed and cut up most of the night, stand up with Randy. Yeah. I can still hear Gerald saying, you boys, we'd be carrying on, Danny and Randy and I, and Gerald would be shaking his head saying, you boys. Yeah, he would. If you were ever given a nickname by Randy or Danny, stand up. My goodness. I wish we had time to hear them all. We don't, but I've heard some good nicknames here. If you've ever heard one of Randy's blogs, stand up. Man, it's a great ministry, and we're going to hear it in closing in a moment. That last one he made in the snow had a real spiritual application. That's the one we're going to see. If you ever worked with Randy at a church or a retreat or Kroger's or wherever, stand up. Yeah, that's good. Randy did something I've never done and I hope I never do. Randy made it through COVID. I don't know, some of you may not have even known that. He told me about it. been a while back. He made it through it actually fairly well, but I don't know if I'll do that. You don't have to raise your hand, but if you ever had COVID and made it through it, raise your hand. Wow. Quite a few of you have. Well, Randy did. Okay, here we go. In conclusion, you know what it means when a preacher says in conclusion? Absolutely nothing. I still can't believe Randy's gone from this life. I think, he'll be back. He'll walk through the door with a big smile. But I think of that scripture I read earlier on that said, Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. I'm not even going to think about talking about or preaching about the theological meaning of when does God take us, when does he not, how long does he let us live. But I know humanly I felt like it was too soon to say goodbye to Randy. But our time is not his time. And we better live every day, as has been said so eloquently, as if it were our last. Randy lived that way. I felt that Randy was taken from us prematurely, but I was reminded he's in heaven. He's with Gerald and Montine. And how many Parmer kids were there? His brothers and sisters?
Oh, Randy's brothers and sisters?
No. Your dad's.
14.
I couldn't count that out when I was a kid, and they started telling me, I won't go there. Montine told me about some of the early days. Montine, they got married real early, didn't they? Gerald Montine, and for one day, Montine left Gerald and came to Waycross and knocked on our door with a little suitcase. And a day later, Gerald showed up at our door, and they moved in with us. They just lived with us, and they found the Lord and were called to preach, and a lot of great things happened, out of that. And I thought, man, I've told Dinah since then. I've said, Dinah, if you ever leave me, I'm going with you, baby. I'm just going with you. I've thought about it. If Randy could come back, he wouldn't. He's seen heaven now. He's seen Jesus. As King David said, he can't come back to us, but we can go to him. Let's do it. Let's determine that we will walk with God as Randy did, and we will be with him for eternity. Now, Danny, if you got anything more to say, say it. And when he's through, then we're going to let Randy wrap this up with his last blog. And you are going to do Freebird, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, I've been listening to Freebird today, and Leonard, thinking of Randy. Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, we will wrap up with Freebird. That's something my brother always said, so that's what we're going to do. So if y'all go ahead and roll it. I haven't seen this. This is another one of those things that I got to change about myself. I missed out on a lot.
raindrops like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dreams that you dare to, why, oh, why can't I?
Hey, so I'm sitting outside. No, rather, I am outside right now. But a little bit while ago, I was sitting inside my house, and I kept hearing this noise outside, like a scraping sound. And then I would hear another sound like a little ATV. And I'm thinking, what in the world, is going on? And I live in a little quiet neighborhood, and I really don't think any of my neighbors are out. So I peek outside, and you know what's going on? I'm not sure what you are aware how the weather is where I live, but this is kind of what it looks like. And so what's taking place is that there are these guys that are out here, and they're shoveling the sidewalks, making it all clear for us tomorrow. Earlier they were out here, there was a snow plow, and then there was, prior to that, like I said, there was a gentleman who was out here driving an ATV, had a little plow in front of it doing the sidewalks. You can even hear the noise now. And so I heard that noise, and it got me to thinking, here it is. Most of my little community here is asleep, and all they know that it was snowing heavy, and they know it's supposed to be more snow tomorrow, but they're going to bed. And what they don't know is that here in the middle of the night, it's cold out here, it's snowing. These guys out here are working hard to make a pathway in the morning for everybody. So when Miss Ruth gets up in the morning, Miss Dot gets up in the morning, when Bill and Ninja Jack and the rest of the crew, Miss Annie, Miss Dot, everybody, they'll wake up in the morning and they'll come out here. Their sidewalk is going to be clear. The path in front of their house is going to be shoveled. It's going to be salted. Why? Because during the night, there was someone out here working, preparing the way for them. That got me thinking, man, there have been a lot of times in life when, I have oh man, things have been going on before you've got problems you're facing. It could be physical. It could be your own personal problems. It could be other problems. We probably all been there, and you think, man, I'm going to bed and I don't know what's going to happen. You've got a loved one who may be in the hospital. Maybe there's a loved one who's somewhere, you don't know where they're at. All you know is that they've gone, they've run off, or they've left, and you have no idea where they are. Maybe there's other things, and you're thinking, God, I don't know how you're going to work it out. I've got bills to pay. I don't have a job. What am I going to do? And it is petrifying, and it's hard to find sleep. And so this reminded me, these guys being out here, is that during the times of darkness, in our life, God is out there. We may not see him. Very few people in this little community are going to see these guys tonight. But God is out there. He's at work preparing the way for us. He is out there salting the way, clearing the snow, all of these things to make a path for us. I'm reminded of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. If you're familiar with the rest of the Psalm, you'll understand what I'm going to say. If you're not, I encourage you to get a Bible and to read the 23rd Psalm. But he talks about the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And the writer goes on and he discusses all the things that the shepherd does. Makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Later on, he talks about he prepares a table for me in the presence of my enemies. These things reminded me of this, and that is that a shepherd, the sheep, they've got them together, and often while they are resting and being guarded, one of the shepherds or a couple of the shepherds, they're out going on looking the path before them, clearing the path, getting rid of the brambles, looking out for predators. They're looking for good places where there will be food for them to eat. All of these things, man, they're out there preparing a way for the sheep for the next day. Now, the next day, that trek, it may still be tedious. It still may be rough. It still may be wrought with danger. But the shepherd has gone before them, prepared a way, and the shepherd will lead them through that. He will be there with them. And that is what I wanted to remind you of tonight in this beautiful snowy weather. Oh, it's beautiful now, but when people get up in the morning and start off to work and you had to get out and walk around, it may not be so as inviting as it is right now. Johnson County Baseball has on their new outfield fence these 3 words. It says commit, embrace, and win. And as I thought about that in relationship to like life circumstances, like for us, it's the snow tonight. And that is, it's snowing. All right. And this is what it's going to be like. So we can commit to it. This is it. All right. To me, it's almost like an acceptance kind of a thing. I'm committed. This is the snow. I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to accept it. You know, I'm going to wrap into it. I'm going to make the best out of it. And theirs is commit, embrace, and win. But I would like to say commit, embrace, and live. And by that, it's like this: commit, like to the 23rd Psalm, to the fact that, man, this is life. This is the circumstance. I don't know what's going to be there tomorrow, but I know that God is out there before me preparing a way. All right. He is the good shepherd. I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to embrace my situation, whether it's good or bad, whatever's happening. I'm going to embrace this is where I'm at, you know, and then I'm going to live. I'm going to live being led by the good shepherd. I hope that this is, whenever you view it, will be an encouragement to you. Again, it was, if nothing else, it was for me. I thank God for the snowplow I heard tonight. I thank God for the guys who are out here scraping the snow tonight. It has encouraged me to know that, like, they're looking out for this community. There are good shepherds. Man, the Lord is my shepherd. If you took time to watch this, you have any questions or comment, leave them in the comment sections below. If you know somebody that might enjoy this or benefit from it, then share it with them. Share it on your page. If you want to give us a thumbs up or a like, you know, that'd be awesome. If you're watching this somewhere you can subscribe. That would be cool too. Anyway, live from Smyrna, Tennessee. Yeah. Hey, God bless you. Keep it on.
Well, I'm Pastor Joe. I am the pastor here at Bethel Church of the Nazarene now, and what a celebration of a life well lived. Amen? A man who loved big, a man who lived big, a man who loved his Savior big. And thank you for being here today. On behalf of the family, thank you for being here and participating and being a part of this service today. Thank you guys for what an incredible celebration of his life. Today, although I am a huge Oklahoma Sooners fan, huge, today as pastor of Bethel Church of the Nazarene, I will allow today to be Alabama Roll Tide here today. Not tomorrow, today, okay? Tomorrow we're back to OU Sooners. Stand with me, will you? God bless you. On behalf of the family, thank you so much for being here today and spending this time and celebrating this life. Go in peace. Spend time with the family today. Stay around as long as you would like to. If there's something we can do here for you, please let us know. God bless you today. You are dismissed. Go in peace.
The moon and stars, they wept. The morning sun was dead. The Savior of the world was fallen. His body on the cross, his blood poured out for us. The weight of every curse upon him. You're